Hi everyone, going to do a little tutorial here on the opening riff for Here Comes the Sun. We picked this song up out of our Get Your Groove On section, and once we played it we decided we wanted to put it in as one of our regular songs. And to do that, there's several little riffs that are in the song that are really important to the song and how it's played. So today we're going to take a look at the very beginning and intro of the song, which happens to start out with a riff. Now when you're looking at it, it's 8 measures, and what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm just going to play it for you so you can hear what it sounds like. Metronome here is set at 120, and this is what it sounds like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, rest. Alright, so that's what the riff sounds like. So now, to learn this, let's break this down. First thing we're going to do, as you probably noticed, very syncopated. A lot of stuff on the upbeats, bebop, bop, 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 instead of the downbeats. Very syncopated in the riffs here. So let's take a look at it. Let's start off with the very first 2 measures. Okay, on the very first 2 measures, right off the bat, you have a rest, a full beat rest, so it actually starts on count 2. So you're going to get a 1, 2 is where you're going to play. Now the other thing you're going to notice as we play through this is only played on 2 strings. It's played on the first string and it's played on the second string, and that's it. I'm going to use my thumb. You could pick it with your index finger if you wanted, but I'll use my thumb today to play this. And I've got fingering written in it. Again, I always like to keep my fingers, once I find out where I'm going to start with my index finger, I like to keep fingers like this. I don't like jumping around. So that very first run is going to be 2nd fret on the first string to the 3rd. That's a very easy motion to make. Then you open on the 1st, 2nd on the first string, and then back to that 3rd. So you really only have 2 fingers right here. You're playing the 2nd string with your index finger on the 2nd fret on the first string, and you're using your middle finger to play this 3rd fret right here on the 2nd string. So that they're not moving around, and you have an open first string that happens to fall in there. So that sounds like this. 1. All right. Now let's move on to the next measure, measure 2. Now you'll notice we have a little tie, so effectively measure 2 starts the same way. It's no different than having a rest. Both the first and the second measure really start playing on the 2. And now's when things start getting syncopated, because you're going to play an 8th note on the 2. Again, index finger on that 2nd fret, first string. You're going to play that. That's an 8th note. Then you're going to come open with a 1/4 note. Back to that right here, this middle finger on the 3rd fret. So see, again, these fingers have not moved from their positions here to an open right there on that 2nd string. All right? So those 2 phrases sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like that. All right? So that's how that works. Let's move on now. Let's take a look at measure 3, and you'll notice that once we start the syncopation in measure 2, just continues on. So let me put measure 2 and measure 3 together so you can hear that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So you can see how syncopated that is. It's not fast. Most of those are 1/4 notes where you have like an 8th note tied in. So it's not a fast run, but it's all syncopated. All right, now the end, 4, brings you back down and kind of stops the syncopation a little bit. And measure 4 sounds like this, okay? Again, we're going to have the 2nd fret, okay, that's being played. That's the first time this has happened. So up until now, your index finger's only played on the first string, 2nd fret. Middle finger is only played on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. So other than the open strings, That's exactly what's going on, okay? Now this is the first change here on measure 4. You are going to use your index finger up here, and it's going to play on the very easy run to the open, all right? So let me play that whole line for you. Measure 1 through 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. 2, and 3, and 4. Ba, 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 just like the melody. Da, da, ba, 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 like that, all right? So again, only 2 strings, only your index finger and your middle finger, and only once does the index finger have to move up to the second string, otherwise they stay there. So you can see there's really not a lot of movement. It sounds really neat, it's very syncopated, but you're really not having to do a lot with your fingering. So now let's jump down from there. Let's take a look at measures 5 through 8. Now something I hope you realize when you look at this, which is really nice, is that if you look at measure 5 and measure 6, they're exactly the same as measure 1 and 2. So once you've learned measure 1 and 2, you now know 5 and 6. They're exactly the same. So 5 and 6 you already know. Let's take a look at 7. Does the same thing. Measure 6 and 7, that's when you start that syncopation. Measure 7 is going to go like this. You're going to have your index finger here, again on that first string, second fret, open. Now your middle finger is going to go on the 3rd fret, second string. Now your index comes down again to this 2nd fret there. So again, only twice in the song does your 2nd finger end up moving to here. Otherwise they stay there. So again, very little movement in the fingers. I'll play measure 7 and 8 so that you can hear them, okay? So it's going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and la ba ba ba. Just a cascading, or I should say descending move on a scale is all that's going. And again, it's syncopated. It's 1 ba 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 ba, like that. Measure 8 is a tie over from the last note in measure 7. So there really isn't anything to play in 8. So if you want to look at this, you can say there's really only 7 measures that you're having to learn, because measure 8 is just a tie of the last note you've played in 7. 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 are the same. So you really only have about 2 or 3 measures you have to learn, and you've got the whole song down, okay? So now, let's take a look at something else here. I was playing that originally at 120. Good way to practice this because of the syncopation would be to go on, leave the metronome at 120, but instead of that being quarter notes, let that be 1/8 notes. And now you're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now when you practice, it's going to sound like this. I'm just going to play, I'll play the whole thing so you can hear it. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. Measure 5. All right, like that, okay? Now, there's one more little trick that I thought I would throw in here just for the fun of it. Most of you guys have iPhones. Or you have an iPad, perhaps you have a tape recorder that you used to have, a cassette recorder, you may have a computer program that records. Another cool thing to do with something like this, and I'll do it just so you can see how it is, you can lay down your own rhythm track Okay, and you can play to that. So if you have your iPhone, you can set it up in video mode, same with your iPad, and then you can play it back through your earbuds if you have a tape recorder, a cassette, an old cassette recorder. I know a lot of people, you could probably even use a dictation recorder if you have one, or any kind of recording program that you might be messing around with. You can record your own rhythm background. And so let's pretend that I was going to play this. I'm practicing at 120. Let me give you the chords to the song. So what you want to do, the chords are the same on the first 4 measures and the last 4 measures. And they go like this: measure of G, measure of G, measure of C major 7, and a measure of D7. So it sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. Now to the C major 7, to the D7. And then that repeats. Next measure of G. All right. So if you were going to set your metronome, you could set your metronome up. Again, these are 8th notes to get started. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Second measure of G. Now to your C major 7. And then you do exactly the same thing for measures 5 through 8. Okay, so you could set up your own rhythm track to practice to see how that sounds within it. All right? So I hope you enjoy that. This is it's not necessarily the most difficult run in the song, but it's long and it starts the song off. So take your time. Take it measure at a time if you need to, then start putting measure 1 and 2 together. When you can play measure 1 and 2, remember, that's also 5 and 6, so that's done. Then try to get measure 3 in there, measure 4. And if you have any questions, always send me an email and we'll talk about it. But again, only 2 fingers are being used, index and middle finger. The rest are open strings. And only 2 places in the song does the index finger actually move from string 1 to string 2. So your fingers are really staying right in the same place to play this whole riff. So, hope you enjoy.